She always claimed theater was her escape, but I didn't think that meant escaping into someone else's pants. The first red flag wasn't lipstick on a collar or moans in the dark. It was a pair of men's boxers in the laundry, size medium, Calvin Klein. I wear large. Always have. Always will. And she sure as hell knows that, because she bought all my underwear last Christmas in a pack of 6 labeled L for Legend. Now, maybe I could have brushed it off as a laundry mix-up at the community theater. God knows that place is chaotic. But when I asked her about them casually over dinner, she looked at me like I'd just accused her of clubbing baby seals. She said, "Those? Oh, those must be from that charity clothing donation we sorted last week." Charity. She was giving to charity, all right. In more ways than one. Still, I didn't flinch. I didn't scream. I nodded, chewed my overcooked chicken, and said, "Makes sense." That's when I knew something in her had shifted. Not the usual kind of shift like forgetting anniversaries or hiding Amazon packages. No, this was precise, guarded. The kind of shift that makes you mentally map out every detail like you're walking through a minefield barefoot. Then there was the rehearsal. I always supported her theater work, even when the scripts were garbage and the performances made me envy the blind. She was directing Macbeth this time, and they held late-night rehearsals every other night. Normal, she said. Necessary, she said. But one night, I dropped off her forgotten water bottle, stainless steel, the one she freaks out over if it's left behind, and when I got there, the front door was locked, lights dimmed, and no voices. Odd. I walked around back, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things, and that's when I saw her reflection in the mirror through the dressing room window. Her and the lead actor. Not kissing. Not undressing. Just laughing. But the way he touched her wrist, like he already owned it, and the way she tilted her head, full of this unearned intimacy, told me everything I needed. I walked away. Calm. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I let the ideas settle in my bones like winter frost. The worst part? She brought him up at home like he was a damn puppy she was proud of training. "He's so talented," she gushed one night. "You'd love him if you got to know him better." Yeah, I'd love to meet him. Preferably in a dark alley with no witnesses. But I waited. Because if you're going to expose a liar, you do it on their biggest stage, literally. And Macbeth was opening in 2 weeks. Sold-out show. Community theater hall packed with local nobodies thinking they were at Broadway. I increased my donations to the production, anonymously at first. Bought them a new projector. Paid for better lights. Made myself invaluable. Then, when they asked if I'd like to say a few words during curtain call for my generous support, I smiled and said, absolutely. That week, I had 3 mini spy cams installed, one in the green room, one backstage, and one right above the dressing mirror where I first saw them. I didn't even have to wait long. 2 days before opening night, they thought the theater was empty after rehearsal. I watched from home as she leaned back against the vanity, his hands under her shirt, her laughter echoing through the grainy feed. Her wedding ring glinted in the light as he lifted her onto the table. And just like that, I had what I needed. The night of the performance, I wore a suit. Not because I wanted to look good, but because I wanted to look important. She kissed me on the cheek before heading backstage, like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't living in 2 entirely different realities. I sat through Macbeth, clapping like a trained seal, watching her direct from the sidelines like some proud artist birthing a masterpiece. And when the curtain fell and applause roared, they called her on stage. She basked in it, smiling, beaming. Then someone handed me the mic. The cast was lined up beside her. Audience full of friends, family, and locals who thought they were witnessing art. I started with a thank you. Thanked the cast, the crew, the audience. Then I turned to her and said, and to my wife, my muse, my reason for funding this passion project, I have a little something to share. A behind-the-scenes bonus reel. Her smile twitched. The projector behind me flickered to life. Static. Then a frozen image, her and him, half undressed, tangled up in the very room she had claimed was off-limits to everyone but staff. The silence was immediate. Then gasps. Then someone's program dropped to the floor with a loud slap. She stepped forward, whispering, "What is this?" I turned to her and said, "The final act." Then I walked off stage, the footage still playing behind me, her moans filling the speakers as the lights stayed on and every single person in that room watched her truth unravel. The lead actor bolted. The theater board pulled her aside. She didn't even chase me. She knew. She knew. And all I had to say was, break a leg. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I thought we had it figured out. Our little routines, quiet evenings, shared dreams. I believed in the strength of our foundation, the the way we navigated life like two puzzle pieces made to lock into place. I supported her theater obsession even when it sucked up our weekends and turned our living room into a prop storage zone. I told her to chase it, even when I saw how little sleep it left her with, how much it strained her, how little time it left for us. I worked my 9 to 5 and came home to make dinner when she was busy, listened to her talk about auditions and lighting setups and community grants I didn't understand. She would fall asleep with scripts on her chest, and I'd tuck a blanket around her, smile to myself, and think, this is love. But slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, she began to morph into someone else. The first sign was her laugh. That used to be mine. She had this raw, belly-deep laugh she only let out when we watched old sitcoms together, something goofy and loud. But then she started coming home laughing at things I wasn't part of. Little inside jokes with the cast, as she called it. I'd ask her what was funny and she'd say, "You had to be there." And suddenly, I wasn't there. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, like I didn't belong in the same room. Then came the projects. She started talking about needing space for her own creative vision. "I need boundaries," she told me once. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but her eyes didn't join in. She began to draw lines, figurative ones at first. "Don't touch my notebooks. I'm unavailable after 9 p.m. Can we not talk during my decompressing time?" Then came literal ones. She moved her workspace into the spare bedroom and began locking the door. She claimed it was to avoid distractions. I thought maybe I was the distraction. Still, I wanted to support her. I told myself, let her grow. Let her breathe. It's just a phase. But that phase never ended. Her phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter or nightstand, started living in her pocket like a secret. It never rang anymore, just lit up in vibrations and glances. I asked her once, half joking, if she was running for office with all the secrets she was guarding. She smiled, tight-lipped, and said, "Not everything's about you." She used to share everything with me, grocery lists, random memes, updates from her mother, but now even her social media was locked down. She'd always tag me in everything, her rock, her support system. But one day I noticed I couldn't even see her posts anymore. "Weird," she said when I brought it up. "Must be a privacy setting thing." Yeah, privacy. I began to feel like a stranger in my own house. There were small changes, new perfume I didn't buy, a playlist of slow indie songs I'd never heard of, candles burning late into the night when I thought she was asleep. She used to wear her old sweats around the house, the ones with the tear on the thigh, but now she got dressed up, even on days she didn't go anywhere. I found receipts in her coat pockets for bars she told me she'd never been to. "Must have been from the girls' night," she said, like I was asking for a detailed crime scene report. Mechanical, distant, like I was some obligation she penciled in between rehearsals. Her eyes didn't close when we were together anymore. They stayed open, cold, focused on something else, or someone else, just beyond my shoulder. I found a ticket stub in her car's glove box for a show she told me she skipped. A one-man comedy act. Front row seat. She claimed it was old. I didn't press. I didn't want to know. Because knowing would mean the cracks I saw weren't just in my imagination. It was easier to believe she was tired, overworked, lost in her art. I told myself she was searching for herself, and I should be patient. I remembered her birthdays, made her breakfast on weekends, held her when she cried over meaningless things like casting disagreements and wardrobe disasters. But her tears stopped coming to me. Her joys, too. She started walking into the house with this strange glow, like the world outside had given her something I couldn't. I remember once standing in the hallway while she spoke to someone on speakerphone in the locked spare room. Her voice soft, different, not how she spoke to me. And when I knocked, pretending to need a charger, she didn't answer. Just silence. Then, eventually, footsteps. "I was napping," she said when she opened the door. But her face was flushed, her shirt inside out, and that charger was right there, on her desk, already plugged in. I didn't question it. I just nodded, went back to the kitchen, made tea, and tried to ignore the way my own heart had started tiptoeing around her like it was afraid to be broken out loud. It was a Wednesday, one of those middle-of-the-road, forgettable days that normally pass without consequence. She said she'd be out late, finalizing stage blocking with the cast, something about lighting cues and last-minute prop issues. I didn't question it. I even packed her a thermos of tea and a granola bar like some loyal golden retriever playing house husband to a woman who forgot what home even meant. Around 9:42 p.m., I got a text from her. Running late, don't wait up. Might crash at Rachel's if it goes too long. Rachel, her assistant stage manager, the one who's never once answered a phone call in her life. The message was generic. Sterile. No heart emoji. No pet name. I stared at it for a long moment, then put my phone down and walked into the kitchen to make coffee, decaf. Not that it mattered. I wasn't sleeping anyway. Something about it all didn't sit right. Not anymore. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and did something I'd never done before. I opened the old iPad she left gathering dust in the drawer. She'd long since moved to her sleek new tablet, probably assumed the iPad was obsolete. It wasn't. And she'd never logged out of her iCloud. The sync hit in seconds. I wasn't expecting anything specific, maybe a deleted message, a photo, something that would give shape to the fog I'd been living in. But what I found made the world stop. It was a video, sent 2 days ago. She must have forgotten to disconnect autosync. There was no caption, no preview. Just the gray, silent icon of a file waiting to be played. I tapped it, and there it was. Her. My wife. In the dressing room. Topless. Holding the camera up in selfie mode, whispering into it. Just thinking about you, she said in that voice, the one she used to use with me back when she meant it. I can't wait until this weekend. You were amazing last night. I'm still sore. She smiled, that damn smile I hadn't seen aimed at me in months. I wish I could fall asleep in your arms every night instead of sneaking around like this. But soon, she blew a kiss at the camera. Into video. No filter. No performance. Just pure, uncut betrayal. I didn't blink. I didn't throw the iPad. I didn't scream or cry or even breathe heavily. My heart slowed. Time slowed. Everything in me collapsed inward, like a star folding into itself. She wasn't just drifting, she was gone. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Ongoing. Premeditated. I stared at the wall in front of me for a full 10 minutes, listening to the silence of the house that used to echo with laughter. I thought about the meals I made. The bills I paid. The nights I held her when she cried about not feeling seen. And she was filming love letters for someone else while my back was turned. I didn't check who the video was for. I didn't need to. His name didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the role she cast me in without my consent, the fool. The reliable idiot who could be left home with a leash while she chased whatever hormonal daydream she mistook for fulfillment. I walked to the sink, rinsed my coffee cup, dried it, placed it on the rack. Every movement was calculated, controlled. My hands didn't tremble. My jaw didn't clench. I was past rage. Past heartbreak. I was in that cold, focused state where nothing feels real but everything feels sharp. I opened my laptop. Accessed the theater's website. Looked at the cast list, the show schedule, the board of directors. I took notes. Created folders. I was done playing husband. Now I was director. And I already knew how this story was going to end. Curtain call was coming. And this time, she'd be the one standing in the spotlight with nowhere to run. I became a ghost in my own house. Not the kind that haunts, no, the kind that listens. The kind that watches every breath, every blink, every slight shift in tone like it's part of a code begging to be cracked. I didn't confront her. That would have been too easy, too satisfying. And I wasn't looking for satisfaction. I wanted truth. I wanted the whole rot laid bare. So I stopped asking questions. I let her talk, let her spin her little fables, and nodded like I believed every word. But behind that calm expression, I was already building the machine that would grind her entire fantasy to dust. It started with timing. I began keeping notes, literal notes, time-stamped, logged. When she left, when she got home, what she said she was doing. Cross-referenced it with our security cam footage, which she forgot I had synced to a private server. I installed it 2 years ago after a break-in scare, and she never cared enough to ask how it worked. Turns out, she still didn't. The first lie I caught was small. She said rehearsal ended at 9:30. She walked in at 10:45. The camera caught her car pulling into the driveway at 10:41. No traffic delays. No gas stops. Just 30 minutes of missing time. The next night, I ordered takeout for 2 and had it delivered to Rachel's address around the time my wife claimed she'd be crashing there. Rachel, who apparently lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and who my wife never lets me visit. The delivery driver called me, confused, said no one answered the door and the name on the buzzer wasn't even close to Rachel. Interesting. I tipped him and told him to forget the whole thing. But I didn't. I opened a new bank account under my name only, quietly started rerouting my paychecks, and ordered a second debit card she'd never see. Then I combed through our joint finances. I found a $78 charge at a hotel bar we've never been to. The next week, another $91. Both on nights she said she was going over scripts. I took a drive one afternoon when I knew she was at a production meeting and stopped by that hotel. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching. Then I walked in, asked to see if I had left my jacket at the bar last week. I described a jacket I didn't own. The bartender said, "You mean the guy who was here with the theater girl? They were in that corner booth for hours. I think she left a scarf. A red scarf." I said thank you and left. She never told me she lost a scarf, but I'd seen it once, stuffed in the back seat of her car. I let it be. Let her hang herself one thread at a time. I created a fake social media profile, generic enough to pass for a real person, and started following the theater's group page. Commented on a few photos. Harmless stuff. Enough to blend in. Then I messaged her lead actor, the same man whose name she always said with just a little too much breath in her voice. I posed as a fan, told him he was incredible, asked if he had any acting classes coming up. He replied quickly. Friendly. Confident. Then I pushed. "You and the director have such good chemistry. Are you two a thing?" He responded with a winking emoji and a single word. Maybe. That was enough. But I didn't stop there. I needed insurance. I went into the spare room one afternoon while she was gone and checked the closet. Found a duffel bag. Inside, tucked beneath theater scripts and a makeup kit, was a bottle of cologne I didn't wear and 2 condoms. She told me she was on the pill. Always said we didn't need those. I took a photo and put everything back exactly as it was. Then I started baiting her. Gentle traps. Innocent conversations. "Hey, you mentioned Rachel's place has a weird parking situation. Do I need a permit if I ever visit?" Her face twitched. "Yeah, it's complicated. You'd hate it there." I smiled. "You're probably right." The next week, I left my watch in her car's cup holder. When she found it, she texted, "Why was this here?" I said, "I rode with you to the store, remember?" She didn't, because that never happened. But she didn't push. Just a thumbs up emoji and silence. I could see the pressure starting to build in her. She was juggling too many lies, and each one cost her more focus. I watched her spin in place like a spider who suddenly realizes she's trapped in her own web. She still smiled at me, still kissed me goodnight. But I could tell those gestures were mechanical now, rehearsed like lines from a tired script. Meanwhile, I was rehearsing my own act, far more compelling. I was gathering footage. I synced her calendar to my burner email through a shared event invite. Harmless. She accepted it without thinking. Now I had access to every fake meeting, every false rehearsal. I mapped out patterns, compared them to receipts, to camera feeds, to text timestamps. And the more I uncovered, the more surgical my detachment became. She thought she was improvising her betrayal like some genius playwright. But what she didn't know was that the audience was already gone. The only person still paying attention was me. And I wasn't watching for closure. I was watching for the finale. She always wanted a night out, one where she could dress up, be admired, live her little main character fantasy, so I gave her one. Booked us a reservation at her favorite rooftop restaurant downtown, the one with floor-to-ceiling glass and that soft ambient jazz she always said made her feel elevated. I told her it was a surprise date night, something to rekindle the magic, something spontaneous. She lit up when I said it, kissed me on the cheek like a good wife, like someone who hadn't already thrown away everything for a man who wore skinny jeans and couldn't spell loyalty. She wore the red dress, the one she used to wear just for me, and heels that clicked like a metronome of deceit as she walked beside me through the glowing lobby. The hostess smiled when we arrived, and I gave her the quiet signal. She knew. I had arranged everything to precision. We sat at a window table with the city skyline behind us, a romantic view, the kind of place where normal couples toast anniversaries or make proposals. She complimented the wine, made a show of the food, tried to touch my hand like nothing had changed. I let her. I let her believe, for 10 more minutes, that the stage was still hers. Then, when dessert arrived, I leaned forward and said, "I got you something extra." She tilted her head like she didn't understand, and that's when the screen on the wall across the restaurant, normally used for ambient scenery, flickered. For a moment, she thought it was a glitch. Then she saw it. Her. Bent over in the theater dressing room, the lead actor's hand pressed against her lower back. No nudity. Nothing explicit. Just unmistakable betrayal. Her smile disintegrated. Her wine glass trembled. She turned toward me, voice already cracking. What is this?" I didn't blink. That's you. During last Friday's late rehearsal. She looked around, eyes darting from the screen to nearby diners, to me, to her reflection in the glass. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered. He was just helping me stretch, back pain. You know how I get. I nodded slowly, still staring at her. And the kissing? That part was physical therapy too. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Okay, yes, we're close. But it's not serious. It was a mistake. One time. I wasn't thinking clearly. The stress, one time. I interrupted, calm as ever. Because the footage from Tuesday says otherwise. And the audio from last Thursday. And the receipts from the hotel bar. How many one-times does it take before it becomes a decision? Her jaw twitched. She leaned in, eyes narrowing. You know, if you actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to go anywhere else. Do you even remember the last time you made me feel wanted? Like a woman. She was reaching now, digging through the script of The Guilty, Scene 3, Blame the Husband. I didn't flinch. I remembered everything. Every birthday. Every opening night. Every time you said you were too tired, too stressed, too busy to be touched, but never too busy to disappear for hours. Her voice rose, just a bit, laced with bitterness. So what? You were spying on me? Filming me? That's sick. You're right, I said. I should have trusted you. But trust is built on consistency. And you haven't been consistent in months, except with your lies. Her tone changed again, mocking now, defensive. So what are you gonna do? Post this online? Make me a villain? Ruin my reputation because you can't handle being left. She was trying to wrest control back, digging into the drama, trying to paint herself as the misunderstood artist, the victim of emotional neglect. But her face betrayed her. There was no power left behind that sneer, just the tremble of someone whose mask was beginning to melt. I leaned closer, my voice steady, cold. I'm not going to ruin your reputation. I'm going to let the truth do that all by itself. You built this house of lies, brick by brick. I just held up a mirror to it. She reached for her napkin, then dropped it. Her hands were shaking now. Please, she said, her voice suddenly quieter, her confidence draining. We can fix this. I can stop seeing him. We can go to counseling, or whatever you want. I still love you. I let the silence hang. Let her choke on it. She still didn't understand. This wasn't about salvaging anything. This wasn't a discussion. This was the final act. She looked around the restaurant again, noticed the couple at the next table glancing over, the server hovering a little too long near the bar. The shame was creeping in, not all at once, but like a shadow rising from her feet to her throat. You don't have to do this here, she whispered. I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. This is exactly where it needs to happen. The same way you exposed me to months of lies behind closed doors, I'm just returning the favor in public. Her face flushed red, not from wine this time, but from something far sharper. And for the first time in our entire marriage, she didn't have a line ready. She didn't have a speech. She just sat there, mouth slightly open, eyes flicking between me and the screen still frozen on her betrayal. I didn't get up. Not yet. I wanted her to sit in the heat, to feel the walls closing in, to realize that this was no longer her script. This was mine. And I hadn't even finished writing the ending. She followed me into the elevator with wild eyes and trembling fingers, her heels clicking against the marble like gunshots in the silence between us. The doors closed. She turned to me with breathless panic, hands raised like she was warding off a ghost. You humiliated me, she spat. In front of strangers. In front of people who look up to me. I didn't respond. The floor numbers blinked down slowly, each one an exhale and the tension stretching between us. Say something. She barked, slamming her hand against the mirrored wall. Are you seriously going to pretend you're some kind of saint in all this? I met her eyes, calm, distant. I don't need to pretend anything. I just showed the truth. She laughed then, sharp and bitter, like glass cracking under pressure. You think you're better than me now? Is that it? You think you're some brilliant puppet master? She stepped closer, invading the space that used to feel like home but now just reeked of desperation. You were never exciting, never passionate. You were just there. Reliable. Predictable. Like a piece of furniture. Comfortable. But boring. I tilted my head slightly. That's what you do with furniture, isn't it? You use it. Then replace it when it doesn't match the aesthetic. Her eyes flared. She hated that. Hated that I could stay composed while she unraveled. You smothered me, she hissed. Always hovering. Always asking how I felt. Always trying to fix things that didn't need fixing. Maybe if you'd focused less on being perfect and more on being a man, none of this would have happened. I nodded slowly. Right. And yet the man you ran to still leaves you at the end of every night. She blinked, stung, like the words were ice against her skin. You're so cold, she whispered, voice cracking. You used to care. You used to listen. I listened, I replied. Even when you lied. Even when you weaponized silence. Even when your eyes wandered. I stayed. I paid. I covered your tracks so you could pretend to be something you're not. She stepped back, folding her arms tightly, breathing fast now. You're acting like a victim, but you're not. You're just bitter that I had the guts to go after what I wanted. Guts, I said, voice like a scalpel. No, you didn't go after anything. You hid in dressing rooms and cheap hotels and lied with a straight face to the person who would have taken a bullet for you. Her lip trembled. She looked down, then back up, rage swimming beneath the surface. So what now? You leave? You throw away everything? I shrugged. There's nothing left to throw away. You burned it when you started calling another man baby in a room I built with my money and my time. She stepped forward again, hands balled into fists, voice raised. You're just trying to make yourself feel powerful. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You think ruining my reputation makes you a man? No, I said flatly. But it does make me free. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person in front of her, and in truth, she didn't. Because the man who used to crave her affection, her approval, her validation, he died the moment I saw her kiss another man with the same lips she used to tell me she loved me. You're a coward, she said, quieter now. You should have fought for us. I did, I replied. You just didn't notice. You were too busy rehearsing betrayal. The elevator pinged, doors sliding open to a quiet hallway. She didn't move. Neither did I. You can't just shut me out, she said finally, voice now soft, almost pleading. You can't just stop feeling. I stepped past her, calm and certain. I didn't stop feeling, I said without looking back. I stopped feeling it for you. She stood in the elevator, arms limp at her sides, mouth slightly open, breathing like she'd just run a marathon through fire. No more clever retorts. No more anger. Just the crushing weight of reality pressing down on someone who thought they could rewrite the ending. But I had taken the pin, and the story wasn't hers anymore. She thought the silence meant hesitation, that my calm meant weakness. But in reality, it was the hum of gears turning beneath a mask of indifference, a machine already in motion. Revenge, for me, wasn't about rage or drama. It wasn't some cinematic outburst. It was about precision, measured, surgical, and absolute. The morning after the rooftop reveal, I made my first move. I didn't wake her. I didn't leave a note. I walked out, got coffee, and sat in the car with my laptop, logging into every shared account we had. The bank first. I froze the joint account, redirected our savings into a new, secure account in my name only. She'd wake up expecting to use her card for a post-apology brunch or maybe some retail therapy. Declined. I canceled the credit card she'd been using for theater expenses, the same one that paid for hotel rooms and overpriced cocktails. Then I called my lawyer. Not just any lawyer, this was the one I'd already vetted months ago when suspicion turned into strategy. I had every file ready. Screenshots of texts, email chains, calendar logs, camera footage, financial records. Organized in neat, timestamped folders. Evidence of infidelity. Misuse of marital funds. All admissible. He filed the divorce petition under irreconcilable differences, but the supporting documents made it clear. I wasn't just walking away. I was taking everything that legally and morally belonged to me. Next, I dealt with the car. It was in my name. I reported it as being in unauthorized use and scheduled for repossession. The spare key sat in my pocket. By noon, it was on a flatbed, rolling away from the community theater parking lot while she was inside rehearsing whatever play she'd been using as her cover story. Then I turned to the utilities. The house? Mine, paid in full by my inheritance. Her name was never on the deed. I called every provider, power, water, internet. Transferred them out of her access. Changed the security codes, the Wi-Fi password, even the thermostat login. By the time she made it home, the smart lock wouldn't recognize her phone. The key she carried was worthless. I didn't lock her out completely, not yet. But I wanted her to feel the shift. The ground wasn't beneath her feet anymore. It was under mine. I left a note taped to the kitchen counter, short and clear. You are now a guest in this house. Until further notice, all legal and financial affairs are being processed through counsel. Contact only through official channels. Then came the professional fallout. Her job at the local arts council, the one she always bragged about like it made her royalty, I contacted their ethics board. Anonymously, of course. provided evidence of her relationship with a performer who had benefited from grant funding she helped allocate, sent copies of texts where she discussed recommending him for future productions in exchange for private rehearsals. They launched an investigation immediately. I didn't need to tell her. HR would do that for me. Quiet. Official. Cold. Just the way she never expected. Then came the social implosion. I sent a calm, polite message to her parents. I wanted to speak with you directly before the rumors start. I regret to inform you that your daughter and I are separating due to ongoing infidelity. I'm handling things respectfully and through proper legal channels. Attached is a summary of events and documents. Her father replied within an hour. No words. Just a single sentence. I'm ashamed to have ever introduced you to her. I never sent anything to her friends. I didn't need to. A single upload to a private album, shared quietly with 3 mutuals, her old college roommate, a coworker she used to confide in, and the neighbor who saw too much. Within 24 hours, the social vacuum began. Invitations rescinded. Messages left on read. The silent judgment far more suffocating than any public blast. She still hadn't realized the full scope. She tried calling me. I didn't answer. She tried texting. One-word replies, forwarded to legal. She begged. Then she threatened. Then she said she wanted to talk, just to understand. But there was nothing to understand. I had dismantled the life she built on lies, one silent move at a time. She thought she had time to fix things. She thought she could guilt, manipulate, or charm her way back into control. But the truth was, she had already lost. This wasn't a counterattack. It was the final act of a man who never raised his voice, who simply refused to be her background character any longer. I wasn't punishing her out of spite. I was erasing her from a life she didn't deserve. Quietly. Legally. Completely. She may have written the first half of our story in Betrayal, but I was writing the ending in Fireproof Ink. She was already unraveling when she walked into the auditorium, but she didn't know just how far the thread had been pulled. This was supposed to be her night, an awards ceremony hosted by the Regional Arts Council, the one she used to brag about like it was the Oscars. They were honoring her for creative excellence, a title she milked for weeks, dropping it into every conversation, flaunting it like it would somehow wipe clean the stain of everything she'd done. I had insisted on attending with her, which she took as a sign of forgiveness. She smiled when I offered my arm outside the venue. She didn't notice that my phone never left my hand. She didn't question why I was quiet. She was too focused on who would be there, how many people would applaud, what she would say in her speech. The lobby was crowded with donors, board members, her colleagues, and a few of our mutual friends. Everyone greeted us politely. Too politely. That manufactured smile people give when they're in the presence of something dying. She mistook it for admiration. Walked in like a queen, not knowing she'd stepped onto the gallows. Her name was printed on the program in bold. Keynote honoree. The MC stood at the podium and began the introductions. I watched her across the table, watched her smooth her dress, fix her hair, check her lipstick. The confidence was still there, but it was cracked, hairline fractures in her posture, a twitch in her left eye. The whispers had started already. She didn't know what they were saying, but she could feel them. She leaned toward me, whispered, "Why is everyone acting weird?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She was about to find out. Her name was called. She stood, adjusted her skirt, flashed that polished smile. She walked to the podium, heels clicking, hands lightly trembling around the award they handed her. She began her speech. The usual garbage: art, passion, growth. This award is about believing in yourself, she said, voice smooth but thinning. It's about the power of storytelling. The first photo appeared behind her on the projection screen. It was subtle, her and the lead actor in the dressing room, mid-embrace. She didn't notice at first, but the audience did. Heads turned, brows furrowed. She faltered mid-sentence, looked back, then froze. "Can we, change the slide?" she asked, laughing nervously. Another photo appeared, then another. Each one clearer, each one worse. Her smile collapsed in real time. Her breath hitched. This isn't funny. Someone's playing a sick joke. The projector kept going. Text messages. Timestamped. Explicit. Then a video. Her voice. Her words. "I can't wait to be yours for real." A gasp from the front row. Someone stood up and walked out. The room was silent but heavy, thick with second-hand embarrassment, disbelief, and judgment. She turned to the MC. "Turn it off. This isn't part of the program." But the MC wasn't moving. Neither was the technician. And neither was I. She saw me then, sitting calmly at our table, legs crossed, sipping water. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. I just watched. Her mouth opened to say something, but nothing came out. Her hands shook visibly now, clutching the podium like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. "You all think this is real?" she shouted suddenly, voice cracking. "It's not. It's edited. He's doing this. He's trying to ruin me because he couldn't keep me." She pointed at me like an accusation could erase her sins. "He's just bitter. He's jealous of what I've accomplished." No one moved. No one spoke. Her parents were in the third row. Her mother's face was pale. Her father had already stood up and walked to the back, his expression carved from stone. Her best friend? The one who used to cover for her, whisper in corners, laugh behind my back? She was sitting at my table now, and she wouldn't even meet her friend's eyes. That's when it hit her. The isolation. The wall of silence pressing in on all sides. She stumbled back from the podium, looking for support that wasn't there. "You don't understand," she cried out, her voice unraveling. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lost. I needed something. But her words died in the air. No one cared what she needed anymore. She had needed validation, secrecy, control, and now she had none. She looked at me again, desperate, hoping for a rescue, a crack in my expression, something she could claw her way through. But I just sat there, still as death. My silence was the verdict. She broke right there. The tears came next. Not graceful ones, ugly, gasping, makeup-running sobs that echoed through the hall. She sank to her knees at the foot of the stage, clutching the award like it might shield her from the storm she created. And I didn't move. I let her sit in it. The humiliation, the guilt, the weight of the truth finally slamming down on her shoulders with nowhere left to run. Everyone saw her for what she really was now. Not a victim, not a visionary, just a liar who wrote a tragedy with herself as the star. And as the applause never came, and the whispers turned into silence again, she looked up and saw me still watching. That was what broke her. Not the photos. Not the video. Not the crowd. Me. Sitting there, unbothered. Unreachable. Unmoved. I didn't need to say a word. I already said everything. And she heard it in the quiet. The moment she saw me walking into the post-ceremony reception hall, surrounded by people who now knew everything, her entire posture shifted, defensive, twitchy, like a trapped animal caught in a room with no exits. Her parents were already there, stiff and silent, the shame etched across their faces like permanent wrinkles. My brother stood behind me, arms folded, jaw tight. Her affair partner, the so-called actor, lingered awkwardly near the buffet, trying to blend into the wallpaper, his face pale with the weight of being publicly exposed. I said nothing at first, just locked eyes with her as the room went quiet, the kind of quiet that screams. She stepped toward me with trembling fury, mascara streaked, mouth already forming her defense. "You don't get to do this here," she hissed. "You don't get to play the victim now, after the circus you just pulled." My voice cut through the air like a blade. "You're right. I'm not a victim. Victims get blindsided. I watched this coming like a storm on the horizon, and I let it hit so everyone could see who you really are." She scoffed, loud and brittle. "You think you're so righteous? So noble? All you ever did was try to control me. Track my time. Monitor my texts. Like I was some child in your perfect little life plan. Control." I stepped closer, just enough for her to feel the weight of it. "I gave you freedom you didn't earn. I trusted you with loyalty, and you used it as a hiding place to sleep with a second-rate theater reject in dressing rooms I funded. Don't talk to me about control. You had all of it. You just used it to destroy." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Her mother turned away. Her father clenched his fists but said nothing. She pointed at me, voice rising. "You're a manipulative narcissist. You only ever cared about how things looked. You never saw me." "No," I said. "I saw you. That's the problem. I saw the good in you and believed it was real. I excused the mood swings, the cold shoulders, the gaslighting, the nights you came home with someone else's perfume and someone else's smile. I saw everything, and I still stayed. Until you made it impossible. You're embarrassing yourself," she snapped, voice sharp and high. "This whole act, it's pathetic." "No," I said calmly. "Pathetic is filming love notes to another man while still wearing your wedding ring. Pathetic is smiling at me in the morning and sneaking off to rehearse positions instead of lines. Pathetic is standing in front of a room full of people you lied to and trying to rewrite the script when the truth finally caught up." Someone in the crowd started recording. Another whisper floated by. Is this the guy she cheated on? Her hands clenched, face flushed, and she turned to her lover across the room. Are you just gonna stand there? She shouted. Say something. He shook his head, slow and useless. I didn't know it was like this. Of course you didn't, I snapped. Because she never tells the truth. She lies in layers, one version for her parents, another for her friends, and one just for the mirror. She turned back to me, tears in her eyes now, but the venom still boiling. You think you're better than me? You think walking out of here makes you some kind of hero? No, I said. I'm not a hero, but I'm not a coward who blames betrayal on boredom. I didn't ruin a marriage because I needed validation from someone who claps when the lights go down. She stepped forward, voice breaking completely now. You can't just erase me like this. We had years together. You don't just get to be done. I leaned in close enough for only her to hear. I was done the moment I saw you give someone else the smile you used to save for me. She stepped back, shoulders heaving, mascara running, her dress clinging to her like a costume she could no longer wear. Her father finally spoke, voice low and final. You should leave. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Her friends wouldn't meet her eyes. The actor walked out the side door. She stood alone in the center of the room, shaking, ruined, drowning in the judgment of 100 silent stares. I turned without another word, walked out with my head high, my brother behind me, the doors parting like a curtain on the final act. I didn't need applause. I didn't need cheers. I had already won the only thing that mattered, the truth. And she was left standing there, surrounded by everything she thought she could control, finally realizing that the only thing she had ever really destroyed was herself. It didn't take long for her world to crumble. A month, maybe less. The theater dropped her name from every production, past and present, as if she never existed. The Arts Council revoked her award in an official statement that used phrases like ethical breach and gross misconduct. And suddenly, all those people she used to charm at wine nights and panel discussions stopped returning her calls. The lead actor, her affair partner, disappeared the night after the reception. No goodbye, no explanation. Just vanished like he'd never existed outside the frame of her betrayal. Her social media went dark after a flurry of comments, some mocking, some furious, none supportive. Friends she'd known for years blocked her. Even Rachel, her so-called ride or die, ghosted her completely once the footage made its quiet rounds. She tried to stay in the city at first, convinced she could recover, rebrand, start over. But it's hard to reinvent yourself in a place where everyone knows the truth. And worse, where they only know you as her. The one who was exposed in front of a full auditorium for cheating on the man who built her career from the ground up. Whispers followed her in grocery aisles. Conversations stopped when she walked into cafes. People crossed the street to avoid making eye contact. She fled after that, crawling into some smaller town hours away where she picked up part-time work at a framing shop, the kind where nobody asked what she used to do. Her parents refused to take her in, said she needed to reflect. Her brother deleted her from a family group chat. Her aunt sent back her birthday card with a single sentence scribbled on the envelope. You broke his heart. I hope it was worth it. And then, after weeks of silence, she reached out. It started with texts, pathetic ones. I miss you. I think about you every night. Please, just one more chance. I wasn't thinking straight. Then came the email, longer, rambling. She blamed the stress, the pressure, the emotional starvation she claimed to feel. She said the affair was a mistake, not a reflection of what we had. That I still meant everything to her. That no one had ever understood her like I did. That she knew she messed up beyond words, but still hoped I could find a shred of the old love we once had. I didn't reply. Not then. Not after the voicemail started either. Whispers, sobs, long silences followed by her broken voice asking if I hated her. I didn't hate her. I just didn't care anymore. But she didn't give up. She came to my door one rainy afternoon in a soaked coat, face bare, eyes swollen from crying. She looked nothing like the woman I married. Nothing like the woman who stood on that podium, drunk on applause. She looked small, weathered. A fragment of what was once arrogance and control, now crushed under the weight of consequences. She said nothing at first. Just stood there, shivering, mouth slightly open. Then, finally, in a whisper, I don't know who I am without you. I stared at her for a long time. Not in anger, not in pain, but with the cold clarity of someone looking at a ghost who no longer haunts. And I said, strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." She flinched like the words hit her in the ribs. And when I stepped back and closed the door, she didn't knock again. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stood there for a while, then disappeared down the street like a shadow at sunrise. That was the last time I saw her. Now I live quietly. Peacefully. No more lies. No more rehearsed lines or games played in the dark. And to anyone listening, thank you for walking with me through the storm. If you've ever been betrayed, I hope this gave you a little fire, a little strength. I'd love to hear where you're from and if this story hit home for you. Because the truth is, some endings aren't about revenge, they're about reclaiming your silence. And making damn sure it's never broken again.